Welcome everybody, welcome. I'm really happy that you joined and to enjoy an hour, a bit more, I think, of Mozart's gorgeous music. My aim today is to enhance our appreciation and understanding of Mozart's genius and personality. And we will examine the myth versus reality. In Mozart's case, the myth, the mythology, or we can say fake news or conspiracy theories goes like rampant, really. It's all over the place. And it's ultimately the source of the conspiracy theories surrounding Mozart are because of his untimely death. He died really, really young and in a really surprising fashion. He wasn't even sick before that. He wasn't ill. He wasn't about to die. He wasn't dying. He fell ill, and 3 days after he had fever, he died. And that was a shock to, of course, to his family, his wife, but also to the entire music world, entire European music world of the time. This was totally unexpected, and Mozart, at the time of his death, was a very important figure, if not the most important musical figure in Vienna, as opposed to the myth that says otherwise, which we will examine soon. But interestingly enough, the first myth was that the Freemasons murdered him. Freemasons, sometimes they're also called the Illuminati. It's like a mysterious cabal that Mozart was a member of that organization. And he even portrayed them in his last opera, in The Magic Flute. He portrayed the Freemasons and allegedly told their secrets of their rituals in the opera itself. Apparently, this is half true. He did that in his own trademark Mozartian humorous way, as we shall see. But the point is that the conspiracy theory was that the Freemasons had killed Mozart. And that was what everybody thought for like 40 years. Until Pushkin, the Russian author and playwright, in the 1830s, published a play titled Mozart and Salieri. And this is the first time in which we hear the involvement of Salieri in the demise of Mozart. All this fairy tale is a legend invented by Pushkin, who wasn't in Vienna at all. He didn't know what happened in Vienna, of course. It's an imaginary tale. But that's enough to incite everybody's imagination. And as we well know, in the 21st century and in the 20th century, our mythology about Mozart, our perception of the person is usually colored by the movie Amadeus. And I'll begin there. Let's begin with examining one of the, I think, key scenes of the movie, of the opera Don Giovanni. And in the movie, we can see Mozart depicted as a kind of childish, maybe silly person who laughs all the time, who behaves stupidly, immature, and also depressed and suffering. That's what we think about Mozart, that he was unsuccessful, ultimately. His genius was appreciated only after his death. All this is myth. None of it is true. But let's see the depiction first, because it is very, very well done. So Amadeus, in the movie Amadeus, the scene related to Don Giovanni shows the production in Vienna of Don Giovanni. And it begins by the common narrative of Mozart's own intentions to raise his father from the spirit of his father from the dead. Because Leopold, his father, just died recently, a few months before Mozart has produced the opera. That is true. So let's see the scene from Amadeus. Amadeus is a great movie. Really great. Highly recommended. It doesn't presume to be historically correct, of course. But the true story behind Don Giovanni is, in fact, it was indeed only staged in Vienna 5 times, but it's not because Salieri prevented it. It was because Vienna was late to commission it. And eventually it was staged in Prague to a huge success. And only afterwards, 5 times in Vienna, and all 5 times were packed. Mozart, in this stage, was huge. He was a celebrity, not only in his opera compositions and productions, but also him as a performer of his own piano concertos. And that's not the type of personality depicted in the myth or in Amadeus. But we don't have only to read history books to understand that. The music itself tells us the same story. Because even in Don Giovanni itself, the work, the entire opera, is not at all what we've just heard and seen. What we've seen is only the ending. Just the ending and the beginning, the very beginning, the first 2 minutes of the opera are this kind of music, which was in fact utterly new for the time. All the rest of the opera is Mozart having fun. It's not tragic at all. It is tragic by implication of the character of the Don, and if you get into the story, because the Don is a very nasty personality. But as a whole, it's a comic opera. And the music says the same thing. Let's listen to the introduction to the what's called usually the overture of the opera. And it begins indeed with this very scary music. That music is definitely in line with what we've just heard. And Mozart indeed repeats this music 2.5 hours later at the end of the opera, which we've just seen depicted in Amadeus. But after all this intro, well, not all, after 2 minutes of the intro, so a few minutes, look what happens here. And this is a magic trick. This is a magician. What happens? Life is so beautiful. Mozart had a great sense of humor, first and foremost. This gorgeous overture, indeed gorgeous, could have just as well started from this point, and we would have been none the wiser. And the point is that the entire opera, throughout the opera, we have almost Mozart in his best comic outlook and emotional outlook. For example, one of the funniest, I think, most hilarious moments in opera that I personally know is, sorry, I'm laughing in advance, is Leporello's aria about the sexual encounters of Don Giovanni. Don Giovanni is a negative personality that eventually, what we've seen in the last scene, he gets punished for all his shenanigans. But here, after Leporello tries to tell one of the story to one of the Don's, in fact, victims, one of his sexual victims, that, yeah, that's what the Don does. By telling this story, Mozart in fact counting how many women the Don had in every country. And it's very comical when it goes to the number 1003, 1003. That's, you would notice, is a very comical pause in the music. Now, Mozart had total control over the libretto of the operas. These operas, the 3 Italian operas, the great Italian operas, the librettist, the person who writes the text for the opera, is Lorenzo di Ponti, which is one of the best or best respected opera librettists of all time. Him and Mozart had a great relationship, great working relationship, and Mozart was responsible in a large part of the actual plot and the actual wording. In this way, he can manipulate the music to really fit any word and any situation and during this aria, at a certain point, I will tell you, notice here how Mozart describes in music precisely what the character are saying or portraying on the screen. Funny aria, Don Giovanni. And that's the real Don Giovanni opera. That's how the opera sounds.
Egli non merita che di lui ci pensiate.
È scellerato, m'ingannone, trade.
E consolatevi, non siete voi. Non foste, non sarete nella prima, nell'ultima. Guardate. Questo non picciol libro è tutto pieno dei nomi di sue belle. Ogni villa, ogni borgo, ogni paese è testimon di sue donnesche imprese. Madamina, il catalogo è questo delle belle che amò il padronio, un catalogo che ho fatto io. Osservate, leggete con me, osservate, leggete con me. In Italia 640, in Almania 231, 100 in Francia, in Turchia 91, ma in Spagna.
Here we go, in Hispania. That's the pause. Yeah. 1003. Mozart is hilarious when he wants to be.
Van fra queste contadine, cameriere cittadine, van contesse e baronesse, marchesine, principesse, e van donne d'ogni grado, d'ogni forma, d'ogni età, d'ogni forma, d'ogni età. In Italia 640.
Now he's repeating the lines about how many women the Don had in every country. They just usually don't translate it twice on the DVD, but that's what he says here. And after this segment, notice that in the next part of the aria, he describes the women: small, large, fat, thin, blondes, brunettes, and the music describes each type of women as well. It's gorgeous.
Queste contadine, cameriere, cittadine, contesse, baronesse, marchesine, principesse, e donne, donne, grado, donne, forma, donne, età, donne, forma, donne, forma, nella bionda, egli all'usanza
Everything is conveyed in music. La Piccina. Every characteristic.
Passione predominante e la giovin principiante. Non si picca se si è ricca, se si è rotta, se si è bella, se si è ricca, rotta, se si è bella. Purché porti la gonnella. Voi sapete quel che fa. Voi sapete quel che fa. Purché porti la gonnella. Voi sapete quel che fa. Voi sapete. Voi sapete quel.
The opera singer is great. I love him. It's really good. The BBC production is highly recommended. It's so funny. And that's how it should be. Yeah, so it's as much fun as this music is, and it's obviously very humorous. Mozart is here in Don Giovanni at the height of his powers. Nothing is here by chance. We've seen every little word is composed, and if Mozart wants to convey extreme emotion, for example, we have the scene in which the Don, who's the evil person, the evil character of the drama, tries to seduce a new victim for his shenanigans. And for this, Mozart composes one of his greatest hits. Mozart is well aware of what this music does and how the music functions. So, Don Giovanni, utterly hateful person, is put the best music just for his voice, because he has to tempt somebody here, and the music works.
Ha dipinta negli occhi l'onestà. Orsù, non perdiam tempo. In questo istante io vi voglio sposar. Voi, certo io. Quel casinetto è mio, soli saremo. E la gioiello mio ci sposeremo. La ti do nella mano, la mi dirai di sì. Vedi non è lontano, partiam ben mio da qui.
There's nothing more effective for temptation music. Mozart is the best. That's, again, great music. And while Mozart was busy with Don Giovanni, a few months before he was busy with Don Giovanni, as I said earlier, his father died. And hence the mythology that Salieri pointed out for us in Amadeus. But even more striking is a different work by Mozart done a few months before Don Giovanni, just at the week that his father died. The same week. It goes to show how professional Mozart was and how almost, I think, in a genius, a natural way, he knew how to disconnect any personal emotion from his actual music. What we see here is a professional artist at work. 4 or 5 days after his father's death, after Leopold's death, Mozart produced one of his most beloved works to this day. 4 or 5 days after his father's death. That's unbelievable. Eine kleine Nachtmusik. According to Wikipedia, that's the most played piece of music of all time ever. I don't know how they count this, really. But I can believe that. That would be a good opportunity to examine some of the classical forms here, because Mozart is, of course, one of the godfathers of Western art music, of classical music. So this particular movement is cast in what's called sonata form. And we can see there are two themes contrasting each other. We just heard the first one, and the second one, if you can follow my screen there, you would see when the second theme enters. And there you would recognize, definitely, because the piece is so famous, that it is indeed the second theme. It's coming up now. Here. Obviously, that's theme number 2. And this is obvious also to whoever comes to the ball to dance to the music for which Mozart composed it originally. It should be very clear to the listener what the form and structure is, and Mozart is perfect. That's the second theme, and we'll get the repeat of the first and second theme soon enough for the crowd, for the audience, to get familiar with the themes. So here we go again. First theme, again, reprise. Now, since like professional musical language always complicates stuff, this simple reprise is called in the musicologist lingo re-exposition, but it's merely just a reprise of the themes. And just as before, pay attention, the second theme is coming up, and we will again recognize it in a very obvious way. This is the second theme. Here. Now in this form, the sonata form, the so-called sonata form, the custom is that after the themes are presented and represented in the exposition repeat, we have a section that's called the development section, in which the themes that has been presented are developed in various interesting ways. So this is exactly what's happening now. Pay attention, because it will be a bit different than the way it was heard before. Development section coming up. So we recognize both themes together interact with each other in the development section. And soon we'll get to the recapitulation, the re-establishment of theme 1 and theme 2. Here we go. We are already familiar with this music. Now, this music, and many pieces like it, the lighter music by Mozart, was widespread and was so popular. Mozart was extremely popular musician in his lifetime. He was also apparently a very good businessman. The piano concerti that he composed were all composed for his own use in Vienna as a performer, as a keyboard virtuoso, performing his own concertos. And he sold tickets himself. And he was a celebrity in Vienna. And he was also the first great freelance musician. Nobody before Mozart embarked on a freelance career, not connected to any noble, king, church. And it was in huge part thanks to these pieces of music, which, despite what we think, were highly appreciated and widespread all across Europe. Eine kleine Nachtmusik, first movement. That's like an evergreen, I guess. That's apparently the most played piece of music ever. No surprises there, are there? But yeah, Mozart has been so popular that I want to give another example from popular culture. There was a very well-produced TV show by the BBC based on a novel by Jane Austen, Pride and Prejudice, in which they quite accurately conveyed the atmosphere of the time, of the beginning of the 19th century in England. By this time, Mozart music has certainly migrated to England. He himself never got there. He died too young. Haydn did. But Mozart's music for the piano or operatic arias translated to English and accompanied by piano were very popular among all the young noble girls who all played the piano, in fact. So this is really well depicted in the adaptation by the BBC. The scene shows that girls from the country girls are playing their own British composers' music, like local stuff. In this case, it's John Field, a local English composer, well known. And then the city girls, who are more like fashionable, try to show off, and they play the fashionable thing, which is Mozart. And that's already very, very soon after his death in England. Beautiful scene. Let's check it out.
Extremely well, child. You've delighted us long enough. Let the other young ladies have time to exhibit.
If I was so fortunate as to be able to sing, I should have great pleasure, I am sure, in obliging the company with an air. Indeed, I should. For I consider music as a very innocent diversion, and perfectly compatible with the profession of a clergyman.
And that's Mozart. The Rondo alla Turca, of course, played very aggressively, we must say. But think of it, why is he Turkish?
Mr. Collins is such a sensible, respectable young man, and he's taken quite a fancy to Lizzie. And I don't think he could...
Why is it Rondo alla Turca? What's Turkish about it? That's also an interesting thing, right? Back then, in the 18th century, they didn't really know. Although Turkey had a border with the Austrian Empire, with the Habsburg Empire, Austro-Hungarian Empire, Mozart has never visited Turkey and never actually heard Turkish music. No musician in Central Europe actually did. And this is called the Turkish Rondo alla Turca because it did remind people of the time, Western listeners of the time, indeed of the very superficial aspects of Turkish-style music, as surprising as it may sound to us today. And another great example of this, just really briefly, is Mozart has a whole opera that takes place in the Sergallo, the abduction from the Sergallo, in which he kind of imitates Turkish music, but to our ears, it would never sound Turkish. Then again, it doesn't sound really like Mozart. It sounds a bit kind of sadder or even more Jewish to us because that's what he or they thought Turkish music sounds like. For example, this aria from the abduction from the Sergallo, just the beginning. It's not very Mozarty, is it? Well, it is, but that's Mozart imitating the Turkish style. That's why it's all minor and sounds almost Jewish. Another amazing opera. Everybody who listens, go watch a Mozart opera after that, no matter which. They're all five of his great operas, including this one, are amazing. But back to the Pride and Prejudice, because they take Mozart as a case in point there, because not only the Rondo alla Turca and similar works for the piano were fashionable, also operatic arias and other material was translated to English and with performing versions for piano or for these same kind of noble girls to play. And one famous aria from The Marriage of Figaro, another amazing opera, the aria of Cherubino is the one depicted later in the series, but let's watch the aria itself. It's, again, one of the most beautiful. For everything we're going to listen today would be one of the most beautiful. So this is no exceptions there. Cherubino from The Marriage of Figaro sings about love. He's really horny. I think that's the word. He's not really in love. He's a 16-year-old and he doesn't understand what's going on. And in the timely fashions of the times, an adolescent boy was many times depicted by a woman. So this beautiful aria, really beautiful aria, has been translated to English. By the time that Jane Austen has written her novel, it was long in the repertoire of all these girls, and we have a very nice rendition of that in the show.
Shall we hear you play? If you insist upon it. Yes, you shall.
And further on, the scene after that, they used the same music to show as a leitmotif the love theme between Elizabeth, the girl who just played, and Mr. Darcy. So the love theme is now based also on the same Mozart aria. And this is great work, just really, really beautiful. The way they put Mozart in there and now using him as the leitmotif for their own love theme. Here, shortly, this is a very short scene, but it's gorgeous, gorgeous music. And then the crossfade to their own music of the TV show. That in itself is inspired by Mozart. And the Marriage of Figaro is really, again, one of the greatest operas, I think, of all time. But also here we can see some of Mozart's wicked sense of humor. I think that would be the word for it, because the opera is finished. The finale of the opera is in a very strange manner. Mozart does not repeat the most beautiful moment in the entire piece, in the entire work. 2.5 hours of music. And the most beautiful, sublime, indeed sublime moment of the opera, he doesn't repeat. That's something that nobody ever does. You do repeat your most greatest moment and most emotionally charged. Why didn't he repeat that? In Amadeus, they're doing the same thing. The movie Amadeus, the director Milos Forman and music director, they were very, very in sync, I think, that would be the word, with Mozart himself. They noticed it as well, the finale of Figaro. They're showing us a scene in which Salieri is sneaking into Mozart's house and taking a look at the music notation on Mozart's table, on what Mozart is working at the moment in Mozart's hand. And we hear the music of the finale of the Marriage of Figaro. We hear the relevant music without the singing, as if he's reading the notes, the notation. And in the most beautiful moment of the music, the director cuts it off. The worst possible moment. Here's the scene.
Gentlemen, I've just heard some
That
news
was
that may be
rude.
of interest to you.
That was just rude, wasn't it? Mozart does the same thing. He breaks the expectations of the opera goers who are experienced enough to realize that this should have been repeated. So why doesn't he? Let's see the actual scene in Figaro, in which the Count apologizes to the Countess, which is a very big emotional moment, because he broke her heart before. So let's see the apology. And she forgives him. Where is the repeat? Where I want to hear it again. It would never come again. The moment is gone. They're screaming, and then they're shouting, and then they're singing a happy song, but not that. Obviously, it's not a mistake by Mozart. He wasn't prone. He's not the type of musician who was prone to mistakes. I believe that Mozart, he was a very clever businessman as well. Just as he sold tickets and subscriptions for his concerts in Vienna around the same time. He knows, well, you want to hear it again? Come again. Buy a ticket again. And that's exactly the way Mozart always winks at us in his music. If we're alert enough, that's Mozart's sense of humor. There's a piece of music called The Musical Joke that he sent his father. And it was a running joke. It is a really good joke. And the point here is how bad musicians play music or how a bad composer composes. But Mozart had, in fact, composed an entire piece in which this is the actual joke. The end sounds like that. A musical joke by Mozart. The ending, only the ending. You can't hear more than that. It didn't even end where it should. That's how badly it's composed. This is Mozart. But let's finish, indeed, with, I think, with one of the most famous pieces of music of all time, one of the most beloved, and one of the most controversial, and a big part of the mythology about Mozart stems also from the history of the composition of his Requiem. It's famously known that Mozart died in the middle of composing the Requiem. He in fact worked on his Requiem in parallel to the work on the opera, The Magic Flute. It's the last opera he ever composed. The Magic Flute was a huge success, and Mozart was performing it. He was conducting right until the last 3 days of his life. The opera was on the stage only for 2 weeks by the time he died. Obviously, he didn't finish the Requiem, but there is big controversy about which parts exactly Mozart did finish and did not finish. And some of the mythology surrounding Mozart is because his wife, Constanze, maintained the mythology about romanticizing Mozart's own untimely death and suffering as a romantic promotion in order for her to be able to sell his music, which she did. She was a very wealthy woman. She outlived him by 40 years. But in the case of the Requiem, it wasn't the case. She was desperate. Mozart has just died, very surprisingly, and the work was unfinished, with the client waiting to pay, and she needed the money. So she needed to say that Mozart did finish the work. And that's why we're not sure exactly which parts are Mozart and which are not, because we don't have any fair copy in Mozart's hand of anything. The final copy was all copied by the hand of Mozart's student, Süssmayr, who in fact finished the Requiem. Now we know about Süssmayr's own composition, which are not Mozart's. By the end of the Requiem, there are 4 movements who are certainly Süssmayr's. The Lacrimosa, Süssmayr said famously that Mozart has left only 16 bars. When we listen to the piece, I would mark the 16-bar time and tell you here, that's the spot in which Süssmayr, Mozart's pupil who finished the Requiem, says that from this point on, it's his music. No researcher nowadays really believes that. Süssmayr probably didn't tell the truth here, but he did complete the piece. Everybody's certain, there's a consensus that the last 3 chords of the piece are Süssmayr's, and it's very apparent. We listen to the entire Lacrimosa, it's not that long and it's gorgeous. And then we listen just to the end to see how different in fact it is and how un-Mozartian the actual last amen of the music is. Mozart Requiem, Lacrimosa. I'll show the words in Latin and translation. Süssmayr said that here, Mozart stopped. No, it doesn't make sense. This music is so gorgeous. No words. Now you can see that the word amen is coming up. And the word amen, the final chord of the movement, is certainly by Susmayer. He had to finish it. We heard a repeat, but now it has to finish. And listen how simplistic this is as compared to Mozart. Thank you very much. You've been great, and we can open the chat now.
Can I ask a question?
Sure. Who's talking?
Mike Altman.
Hi, Mike. Nice to see you.
Amazing music.
Thank you.
It's how, when you say he sent the joke to his father, what did his father do with it? How did his father play the music?
Oh, his father didn't play the music. He just read the music.
I see.
They were corresponding until his father's death. They had like corresponding 2 or 3 letters every week. Mozart and his father. That's the main source for us to know Mozart's biography at all is by this exchange of letters. That's how we usually know the biographical details about Mozart.
Okay, thank you very much.
Sure. So I see that everybody enjoyed the lecture, and I'm setting up like a community for English speakers who enjoys this kind of classical music evenings and lectures, and I'll let you know how to register. And I had so much fun with you. It's really exciting to be lecturing in English. So here is well done. English was perfect. Thank you so much, Lucille. Many thanks for a very interesting hour. Really loved it, Lucy. Thank you. Thanks for a magical hour, Aviva Friedman. I really appreciate it. And maybe next time I'll go on with Mozart, because there's a lot more to talk about. Even the mere subject of Mozart's sense of humor is something that I didn't really get into, because there are so many funny anecdotes throughout his work that are amazing. Like really funny. Do you want one last anecdote before we go?
Please.
I don't know which. I think the magic flute is the funniest, really, with the Papageno, the shenanigans. That Mozart chutzpah to gag the singer, just mere chutzpah of an artist. It worked great. The magic flute was a huge success, but Papageno is getting gagged in the scene here. And he can't speak, so he tried to sing with Mozart. All for the fun of it.
Der Arme kann von Strafe sagen, denn seine Sprache ist dahin. Ich kann nichts tun, als dich beklagen, weil ich zu schwach zu helfen bin. Ich kann nichts tun, als dich beklagen, weil ich zu schwach zu helfen bin. Weil ich zu schwach zu helfen bin, weil ich zu schwach zu helfen bin.
Die Königin begnadigt dich, lässt dich rufen durch mich.
Nun plaudert Papagino wieder.
Lüge nur nicht mehr.
Ich lüge nimmer mehr, nein.
Die Schloss soll deine Wohnung sein.
Die Schloss soll meine
Soll deine Wohnung sein.
Bekämen doch die Lügner alle ein solches Schloss vor ihrem Mund. Statt das Verleumdung schwarzer Galle. Die Stunde lieb und Bruderbund. Statt das Verleumdung schwarzer Galle.
So yeah, that itself is funny enough. The entire opera, the Singspiel, in fact, it's not an opera, the Magic Flute. The appropriate genre would be the Singspiel. It's in German, if you notice. It's not in Italian. But the entire thing is quite funny. but also subversive in a way. As I said in the beginning, Mozart puts here all the Freemasons kind of mysticism. We'll see the three boys, the number 3 all the time in the scene, but most famously is the Queen of Night from the same opera, which also is kind of a funny anecdote of on the part of Mozart. The Queen of Night is impossibly demanding aria for the vocalist. It's impossible to sing. Mozart had obviously the cast in mind when he composed the opera. He knew precisely who was going to perform which role, so the role was tailor-made for a specific opera singer, who happens to be his sister-in-law, the older sister of his wife, whom he hated. He really hated her. So he composed the hardest thing in the world for her, to challenge her on stage. Nowadays, it's one of the most brilliant things in opera vocabulary ever, with all the Freemasonry stuff that put in for good measure. But at the time, Mozart was probably really laughing out loud. The joke was in his hated sister-in-law. That's unhuman. Impossible to sing this. אז זהו, תודה רבה לכולם, ואני אעדכן ונתראה בקרוב. תודה, הייתם נהדרים.